Rory Blackwood navigated the crowded ballroom with an air of confidence that belied her unease. She had been dreading this evening for weeks, ever since she'd received the invitation to attend the Azure Estates charity gala as a guest of honor. The irony wasn't lost on her, she was here to support a cause, but it seemed everyone else had come solely to see and be seen. As she scanned the room, her gaze landed on a figure that made her heart skip a beat. Kaelin Vex stood tall and imposing near the bar, his chiseled features illuminated by the soft glow of the chandeliers. His piercing blue eyes seemed to bore into her very soul as he raised an eyebrow in her direction. A shiver ran down Rory's spine as she felt the weight of his gaze. She turned away, trying to shake off the sensation, but couldn't help sneaking another glance at Kaelin. He was even more striking up close, the sharp lines of his jaw, the scattering of dark stubble across his cheeks. And Rory's eyes narrowed as she surveyed the scene before her. They had been driving for hours, the winding road eating up miles like a hungry beast. And then, without warning, they hit a wall. Literally. A massive boulder, half hidden in the shadows, had chosen this moment to fall onto the road, blocking their path with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. She let out a low curse as she yanked the steering wheel hard to the left, trying to skirt around the obstacle. But it was too late. The tires squealed in protest as the car skidded to a stop just inches from the rock's granite surface. Rory's heart rate spiked as she threw the car into park and killed the engine. They were stuck. Again. As they stood side by side on the narrow trail, Rory couldn't shake off the feeling that Kaelin was hiding something from her. His piercing blue eyes seemed to hold a perpetual vigilance, as if ever ready to defend against some unseen threat. The wind rustled through the trees above them, carrying the whispers of leaves and the faint scent of wildflowers, but Rory's senses remained fixated on the enigmatic figure beside her. They had been walking in silence for what felt like hours, their earlier animosity gradually giving way to a tentative truce forged in the crucible of shared adversity. Rory couldn't help but wonder if this fragile equilibrium was nothing more than a mirage born from exhaustion and desperation. Every now and then, Kaelin's eyes would flicker towards her, his gaze lingering for an instant before veering back to some distant point ahead. It was as if he feared being seen, or worse, discovered. The thought sent a shiver down Rory's spine. She had always... Rory stepped into the kitchen, her eyes scanning the space as she poured herself a cup of steaming hot coffee. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the ticking of the clock on the wall. She couldn't shake off the feeling that Kaelin's presence loomed over her, even though he wasn't there. The air seemed to vibrate with unspoken words and unfinished conversations. Her gaze drifted towards the kitchen island, where a single sheet of paper lay crumpled in the trash. A piece of it had been torn out, leaving behind a jagged edge that screamed for attention. Rory's heart skipped a beat as she approached the island, her hand reaching for the offending paper. The contents were what she'd expected but still managed to shock her, a rough layout of the mountain route they'd traversed, annotated with cryptic symbols and codes. It was Kaelin's handwriting, unmistakable in its fluidity and precision. He'd been tracking their journey, monitoring their progress. Rory wandered through the empty apartment, her feet carrying her to places she'd never been before. Every step creaked under her weight, like a mournful sigh that refused to subside. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and yesterday's memories. She drifted past the kitchen island, where Kaelin had once poured her a cup, his eyes locked on hers as he whispered, "You're mine." Her heart twisted at the memory, like a knife turning in its sheath. How could he be so callous? So cruel? The apartment seemed to whisper secrets in her ear, whispers of laughter and tears, of arguments and makeups. But they all centered around one thing, Kaelin's presence. His absence was a void that gnawed at her, like a rat eating away at the foundation of her sanity. Every surface held a story, every object a memory, every smell a bittersweet reminder of what she'd lost. The silence had become a living entity, suffocating. The air in Rory's apartment was thick with unshed tears and unresolved tension. She stood at the edge of her bed, her hands clenched into fists as she faced Kaelin, who loomed over her like a specter of guilt. His eyes, once bright blue and piercing, now seemed dull and resigned, weighed down by the secrets he'd kept hidden for so long. The silence between them was oppressive, heavy with the weight of his betrayal. Rory's heart ached as she recalled the shattered trust, the broken promises, and the shattered dreams they'd shared. Her voice trembled as she spoke, each word slicing through the air like a knife. "You lied to me, Kaelin." His head dropped, shame etched on his face as he whispered, "I know." The admission hung between them like a challenge, daring Rory to forgive, to forget, or to flee. She chose none of those options. Instead, she took a step closer, her eyes blazing with tears and anger, and said, "You owe me an apology,